And welcome to the Dabs and Show, episode number 5, Dabs and Division. Today, we are going to discuss the great divide that we're seeing in America. We're going to touch on hate, division, and we are going to have an open, honest discussion about our thoughts of what's going on. You know, it's not going to be like one of our regular episodes where we pair. We are going to still have the bags, but we're just going to dive deep and see kind of what our thoughts are on what's going on and, you know, what potential solutions could be.
100%. There's so much division and divide and hate in this world right now, it seems, or at least that's what we're told through media, that is out there that, yeah, it makes sense to me to bring up this topic. Let's talk about it. Let's go dive deep. But before we dive deep into that, let's dive deep into a little bit of stuff with the Terp CPA myself and C corporations for Michigan. So this is in particular to cannabis companies. For cannabis companies, what you want to focus on is how do I minimize my tax liability? Well, in that circumstance, what you can do is, instead of doing a partnership or an S Corp or a different kind of entity, what you can do is a C corporation. The reason that is so important is a C corporation allows you to take deductions on the state side that you wouldn't normally be afforded if you were to do a partnership, specifically in Michigan. So for the laws in Michigan, a partnership is only allowed what the federal is because there is no return filed for Michigan. So you don't take additional deductions. You don't get that additional benefit. So if you're a C corporation, you're actually able to lower your tax liability by taking those deductions. Because I'm assuming a lot of these cannabis companies are owned by high net worth individuals who are making a lot of money. So their tax liability is not what you want to take into mind. You want to take into mind, can I get that 21% and can I get that, well, at the federal level, but can I get that state tax liability as low as possible to make sure that you're not hurting as a company? So that's definitely something we wanted to talk about today, and that is what I wanted to highlight as the Terp CPA, because as a cannabis company, you don't want to be in pain. You already pay enough tax as it is. If you can save money in any way, shape, or form, why not do it?
Terp CPA, I agree with that. I know Uncle Sam is realizing right now that the money that can be milked out of this industry, you know, you look at that federal bill that came across that Schumer was, I think it's like the star achievement. What is it, like a 22% federal tax on top of the state taxes that you're going to get?
Oh yeah, it's a graduated scale. It's going up to, I think it might have been as high as 25% if I'm recollecting properly.
Yeah.
That it's just 25% on top of the state stuff.
On top of, so well, like yeah, in some states a 50% tax?
Well, in some states are analyzing, are their state taxes right now sustainable? Colorado's analyzing that right now and figuring out, does this really make sense? Can we sustain this? Because that's the thing, too, that the government, I think, is failing to realize. The more of a federal burden you put on these companies, the harder it is going to be for the states to justify their state taxes. Companies are going to start moving out of states with the higher state taxes to go anywhere they can to save a little bit of money, because those taxes are going to be killing them if federal level's 25% and you go to California, which is just insane. From what I remember at the at the customer side, it could be upwards of 33%. And that's like, what? 33%? For what? What am I missing here that is so specialized with the cannabis industry, that is so unique that we need to tax it to death, to where we're driving companies out? Because California is losing companies, from my understanding, because of that reason. Their taxes are so dang high. Like, and it's not reasonable, and it's not necessary.
Listen, I completely agree with you. As a person who does a lot of business in this industry, one huge thing we always look at is taxes, and California state taxes are atrocious, and tacking on a 25% federal tax, why would I keep my business headquartered in California? I'd move it to Oklahoma or Michigan, where our state taxes are much more lenient, and you're never going to get around the federal tax. So you move to a tax haven state that'll treat you better. Mm-hmm. And the joke is, you're seeing this in all industry right now. Well, not just the cannabis industry, any industry where the state, like gun companies right now. Gun companies right now are leaving a lot. Like I want to say it was Smith & Wesson. After 100 years in the same location, they're leaving to a state that won't tax them based on the new laws they've passed for gun manufacturers.
Oh wow, I didn't realize that. I knew for, like, I hear a lot of celebrities are basically vacating California and moving to Texas, and basically everyone's trying to go to those zero personal income states as a personal side of it, as well as the business side. Because I think the business side is a big piece of it, but I think a lot of these business owners are thinking about it from their personal aspect. They're thinking,
Montana.
okay, Montana.
You know how many people live in Montana now that used to not live there?
Probably way too many.
It's another one of those tax haven states where it's people are finally realizing I'm going to pay this money no matter what. Why not headquarter myself in a place where I don't have to pay as much? And I think that's a great segment into like our first major section of this episode, which is hate.
Yeah.
Because
who doesn't hate taxes?
Who doesn't hate taxes? I mean, literally, it's the upper class of our country, the 1%, the high earners, do their taxes differently than the average man, the average woman, the average person, human in this country. And to me, I think that's a load of crap. Why? Because
they're willing to pay for it as part of it.
No, exactly. And that's a pay for play. You get what you pay
100%.
for. When you go to H&R Block and you have a guy that's following a computer program to do your taxes, you may miss out on some key deductions, right?
Oh yeah, the people who go through H&R
Terp CPA,
Block, oh my gosh, don't even get me started with H&R Block. H&R Block is fine as a company, is how I look at it. From my understanding, they typically don't have a actual accounting background a lot of the times when it comes to the preparers, the people who are doing the face-to-face interviews and things. They go through their H&R Block training. I'm not saying they don't get any training. I wouldn't ever knock them in that way. But the level of understanding that they have when they're talking to these customers, I think is limited compared to someone who's actually in the public accounting space or as a CPA who is practicing and understanding and going through those with business owners and actually talking and figuring out, okay, here's a tax credit that you can have that you wouldn't have had otherwise, or with the changing of COVID and everything. Like employers this year were able to take advantage of the employee retention credit, so the ERC, and so they were able to basically get a credit for keeping employees on. So if they're paying employees, they're able to get a credit. I think it was around $7,000 per employee, around there is the limit. But it's within, there's a lot of different rules. It's all on how much your gross receipts dropped. So there are a lot of limitations. I'm not saying it's an easy credit to get, but there are things out there that if you have the right CPA, you have the right accountant, they'll be able to get you to those things and get you to those resolutions and get you that money.
Yeah.
I mean, the research and development credit.
The money's there.
That's a big one for companies. I mean, companies right now that I think are underutilizing it, that need to utilize it, because CBD and hemp, for the love of God, guys, go out there and find yourself an R&D firm who's willing to do that, because you're federally legal. You don't have the 280E limitations. You don't have the problems. 280E limits your deductions and your tax credits. You're not allowed tax credits with 280E. That's a THC-based company.
So that's a real question. So 280E only affects THC companies. So CBD companies that sell full spectrum CBD with under the legal federal limit.
Yes, exactly.
THC
It has to be
in
within the federal laws.
As long as it's under the federal law. Okay, because that's a big question among CBD companies nowadays is, how the hell do I do my taxes? Do I form a completely new company because I don't want to rope in this CBD business with all my other business?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, no,
that's 100% what you want to do, especially if they're independent of each other and can be profitable. Because what happens sometimes is people will lump in their CBD with their THC. Okay, so yeah, you're selling 5% of your sales is CBD. Great. That, unfortunately, in the federal law, all of it falls under 280E, and you don't get any extra deductions. You can't take your labor. You can't take your your pensions, your typical deductions, like your supplies even.
Yeah.
Like you can take your
Pencils,
cost of goods
paper.
sold and everything else, but like your office expenses and anything else like that.
Simple stuff a regular business can take any day of the week.
So a CBD company.
Whole another thing contributing to the hate in this country.
100%.
It's the same industry. Does tobacco gets to take regular deductions, don't they?
Well, they get to take regular deductions and don't get taxed out the ass either. That's the other thing, is like the deductions are one thing, but the taxes are a whole other thing in itself. But really where we started with was the tax credits. So CBD companies, go out there, find yourself someone who's willing to do your R&D tax credits, especially if you're doing research and development work. Because if you're having to test your formulas, figure out what's going in your pods, what's going in your oils, that's all R&D.
Yeah.
That's all real work.
Yeah.
And there's a tax credit that can be had for that. So just go out there, talk to people, find out if you are eligible, because sometimes what you're doing is really not considered a chemical change or a real material change. So what ended up happening with companies trying the retail side of it. So one retailer in particular got in trouble for this, and this is a little bit of a different topic, but it's more about the material change. So they were taking flour and breaking it down and putting it into pre-rolls and jars for their retail storefront. That doesn't count as a material change. You didn't chemically change or actually manufacture the actual product itself. There's nothing going on there to where you can take an additional cost of goods sold. Similar thought process, if you're not doing anything chemically or actual anything scientific or anything to where you have to figure out what is going on, and it's not just I'm taking this CBD flower and putting it into jars, that's not R&D. But if you're actually having to chemically change it, you're processing it. I mean, shoot, processors out there with CBD, I am sure you're going through trial and error. There's no doubt in that, and that is R&D. The more you fail, the better it actually looks for R&D. So the more failures you have, the better it looks, because yeah, you had to fail this many times till you got to a good product, and that is the key in that.
And that's why that credit exists, is to at least give a person, a little bit of their, time and effort back. That makes perfect sense.
Well, it pushes innovation in America.
Yeah.
That to me is what's so good about it, is it pushes innovation in America. It incentivizes companies to do that innovation.
I completely agree with you there. The R&D tax credit is definitely something I would recommend to any extractor in the business, in the marijuana industry, 100%. CBD very specifically. You have recoverable funds. It's definitely a real thing, assuming you do it right.
Yes,
have
exactly.
a CPA. That's the biggest thing I'm hearing here is process.
Yeah, so find a firm that specializes in it. Because some CPA firms are willing to say, yes, we can do it, but they can't always follow through, and their substantiation of the credit isn't good enough to where when the IRS comes back and says, how did you justify all these costs? Well, we decided to ask them for the number, and then we got it back. Okay, great. So you just asked them how much they spent. That's not actual R&D work. That's not actual substantiation of it. You're not talking to subject matter experts of the company and finding out what did they do? How did they figure out the formulas? There was no conversation. So don't go to someone who's going to lead you astray and put you in more pain.
Yeah.
At the same time.
I'm listening to this right now, and I just think to myself, how many businesses, getting into this, go through that pain before they finally get themselves on a path where this is what we're doing, this is the right way, and this is the only way.
Exactly. It's all too often for far too long.
Yeah.
And sometimes it takes the IRS coming in and saying, hey, this is all messed up and you owe us a lot of money, for them to be like, oh, so there is a problem.
Yeah.
Because sometimes part of the thing too is business owners aren't always financially literate in understanding the financial statements that they're receiving. So you can have an accountant doing all your bookkeeping, but if you don't understand what you're looking at and seeing, well, I didn't spend $20,000 on supplies this month, what's going on here? If you don't understand what you're looking at, then that's part of the issue too. So also you want to get with an accountant who's willing, if you as a business owner are open to it, to explain it, go through it with you, and make sure you understand what you're looking at, understand what the services you're being provided. So that's the other thing too, as a business owner, if you don't understand the services you're being provided, how do you know you're not being swindled?
Yeah.
How do you know you're getting the right service?
No, that's big. That's a big one. That's a big one. I think that is another big one that contributes to hate.
I was going to say that could definitely be a driver for hate.
I just drive for hate. So like when we talk about hate, I always think to myself, we have the Dabs and Deniers episode. I'm going to plug that right now. When we talk about people who deny that the world is over 2,000 years old, 10,000 years old, in 100,000, maybe even 1,000,000 years of human existence, our knee-jerk reaction for the majority of the population is still just instantaneous hate. And something that I don't understand as a human being is, how have we not with our evolving of higher conscious, how have we not found a better way? Because there is a way, and it's not the best way, but rather than hate someone with every inch of your being, why not like work with that human being to try to find a common ground, a middle, a solution? Yeah, it sucks and it's hard, but it's a hard truth that you're much better off in the long run finding out what in God's name is so horrible about this human being and working past it than dedicating emotion and mental health to hate. Because I'm going to tell you what, shedding hate for all individuals and just not being okay with hating someone, man, it does wonders for your mental health.
It really does. And I think what it stems from is when we have conversations as human beings, a lot of the times, especially in America, we're having conversations where if we're having a debate, we're not debating to understand each other. We're debating to be right.
Yeah.
I'm going to debate you until I'm right, Paul.
Yeah.
Until you see my point,
Yeah.
and
until you
accept
agree
my
with
point.
me. Like, I agree with you. I want to hear the words. Oh yeah, you know what? Tyler, you're right. Like,
Exactly.
like that's, if people will fight to get that, because it's almost like a personal satisfaction.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I hear what you're saying, and I want to say something else, and I'm just going to keep one-upping you until you just tell me I'm right. And it doesn't matter. And you know what? I laugh because when I have conversations with people, it's like, I'm here to learn.
Yeah.
I'm going to listen until you stop teaching me.
Exactly.
And some people stop teaching real quickly. You know what I'm saying? Some people stop teaching real quickly. So it just all comes down to what you key into best and how you respond. Mm-hmm. And talking to somebody, and actually, hey, why do you hate me? What is it about me that you hate so much?
Yeah, help me understand.
And another hard truth, if they look at you and give you an honest, hey, I hate you because of these very legitimate things, well, maybe you got to look in a mirror. Maybe you're a person that should be hated. But that's, again, a personal life choice. We make decisions. There are actions and consequences to our decisions.
Oh, 100%.
It's a hard truth, but it's life.
If you hear something that you don't like, or you say, wait, I don't think I'm that way. Well, maybe that's an opportunity for you to do some self-reflection and really look inside and see, well, am I behaving that way to other people? Am I being received that way? Because sometimes the intention isn't to be received that way, but you're received that way because either how that other person's mindset is at, or the way you're conveying the message. Because I know I have a hard time with that sometimes in my personal life, with not being, when I'm trying to be assertive, sometimes I come off aggressive. And that's something I'm really trying to work on, because I don't want to be seen as aggressive when I'm trying to be assertive. I want to be clear and understood, but I don't want to be feared.
Yeah.
I don't want you to be afraid of me in this conversation.
Well, let me ask you, have you been passive your entire life?
Oh, 100%.
Is it only now, as you're getting to become more of an adult, more confident that you feel like you're being aggressive? Is this the first time you've ever felt aggressive ever?
Because this isn't the first time I felt aggressive ever. It's more something I've noticed as I've been trying to figure out how to be more.
Because it's not aggressiveness. That's what I'm saying, is it's not aggressiveness. It feels like aggressiveness because you've been so passive your whole life. Like, this is a thing I recently, a psychological study I read about passive people, that when passive people in our own, because I'm incredibly passive. It was only in the last 4 or 5 years that I've really put my foot down in my own life that I'm not going to be a passive person. I'm going to take action, because from a mental health standpoint, I'm alive because I've made these decisions. Because any other way, and I can't mentally be okay with that with myself. I can't. It wears on me too much to allow another person to just walk on me as a really nice passive guy. I still try to be as nice as humanly possible, but I will not be disrespected. No. It's as simple as that. I'm a very nice person. I have a long rope, but I'm not going to just be walked on by life, society, or anything, because my own mental health can't sustain that.
Exactly.
So when you look at the idea overall of talking with people and getting people to be able to conversate with each other, the passivity of people, if I start not being passive, initially the feeling is, wow, I'm kind of like being an asshole. I'm being rude. I'm being aggressive or too assertive. And the study shows that that's completely normal because you've never been that way before.
Yeah. So it's something. I guess my point was with it. It's something I need to learn. It's something I'm trying to figure out because what assertive was to me was, well, this is how I feel about it.
Yeah.
You see how my tone changed? I got more aggressive, and even with the table, I pounded that stuff.
Yeah.
And that is my point with it is, I had to figure out how to get my point across, but not being aggressive about it at the same time. Like, you're understanding
articulation.
What I'm saying. Exactly. Articulate.
How the hell do you articulate yourself to somebody in a way that they will understand and respond to in a positive manner? Like, hey, these are my feelings. This is the logical statement that has led me to this point. Yeah. This is it. Do you accept that or no?
Oh, 100%.
You know, and it's like, that's, to me, that's simple conversation. But I think a huge thing that adds to hate in our society nowadays is the fact that people have a real hard time doing this. Albert Einstein hit the nail on the head. He saw it. When technology takes over forms of communication, takes it over, we will have a generation of idiots. And I think the part where he was wrong was, it's not just a generation, it's an entire epoch of, it's like, this is like the dawn of the de-evolution of dinosaurs before their extinction, before the asteroid, before famine, before they ate themselves. Like it's
Idiocracy.
Idiocracy, the movie in real life. We're living it. We are living it. But we don't have to. You don't have to submit to this idiocracy way of living.
You don't, but so I think that goes to our conversation a little bit from earlier today with comfort. How much are you willing to give up? How much of your freedom are you willing to give up for the feeling of safety and comfort?
Jefferson, how much, trying to remember the quote, if you are willing to give up your civil liberties for temporary safety, you deserve neither safety nor civil liberties. Something along those lines. And I might have butchered the exact words, but the
idea is there.
The idea is there. And there's, two parts to everything. And, moving on from, our hate portion of this episode, hate in America to the division in America, I think it's a great segue. Hate and division go hand in hand when you see societies be divided. Yeah. I mean, look at American society from a 3,000 mile up bird's eye view timeline. The last time it was this bad, in my opinion, and people might say I'm wrong, but I'm in the Paulosphere and I can make an opinion. Yeah. Not that it's right, but it's in the Paulosphere and this is my opinion. Exactly. I don't think it's been this bad since the Civil War. Okay. I don't. I think I've never seen people, when looking in history, I'm a history buff, I've never seen in society people be so okay with killing each other than right now. Look at social media and it's only stoked it. Kill that guy, that guy should rot in prison, the death penalty. People that are perfectly fine protesting the death penalty, but are glad to go on social media and say that guy deserves the death penalty, we need to kill him. And it's like, death by social judge? What? Like,
well, yeah, when we say people, though, are you referring to like Republicans and Democrats?
Everybody. Because there are Republicans that say that there shouldn't be a death penalty. There are Democrats that say there shouldn't be a death penalty. Mm-hmm. There are people that just yell visceral from both sides of the aisle. Like, this is like they hate each other. How the hell do you ever fix a divide full of hate with more hate?
Well, yeah,
that's my biggest thing. Is like to me, they just keep trying to do the same thing over and over again, and we're just going to keep stoking this hate between the groups to get votes, and the domino effect of that is what is more of what I'm.
Oh, 100%. I completely see what you're saying. Like, the hate between both groups is really unnecessary, and to have such a radical divide. I mean, basically, we've been given two teams to pick for. Who do you want to root for, Republicans or Democrats? We believe this. We believe the complete, almost opposite of that. And so make a choice.
Yeah. It's essentially a tennis match. The ball just keeps going back and forth, and the distance just keeps getting wider and wider. And
there's no in between.
A great friend of ours, DJ Arcola, okay? Yeah. He said it best. it's a tennis court. It's going back and forth, and I agree with him. And I take it a step further. The sad part with that analogy, because I believe in it and I agree with it, somebody's going to win that match one day. One side's going to hit the ball out, or one side's going to spike it. You don't know.
There's alluding to one of the sides is already kind of winning, and they're
you don't know.
They're just more brazen about a lot of things than that.
Anything is possible in tennis. That's all I gotta say for that analogy is anything is possible. And I play it. I play tennis 3 days a week. Dabs and Diet episode shout out. The Prophet today, marking today. We're bringing it up in the episode real quick. I'm down 70 pounds.
Yeah.
Dabs and Diet, baby. 70 pounds in 11 months. Money. Me, real quick. I'm sorry. I had to shout that episode out. But you know what I'm saying? Like,
100%.
Anything is possible. And when you have a pot stirred, and you have this powder keg of society, it's just going to happen. It's just going to pop off. And how do you fix that problem? How do you control that? How do you cure the division that we see? How do you, and alluding to the next segment, we're going to talk a little bit more about division, but the Great Divide, like we talk about, how this division.
Well, the idea of
keeps getting stoked.
Well, part of it is, I think, the idea of the individual. Like, we're so in America focused on the idea of the individual and being the American dream that I can have this if I just work hard and I. And that, to me, I think is the biggest thing that really divides us or brings and increases the division is we're not thinking about the collective. And when I say collective, I mean human beings as a whole, all of us from both really any race in general, because the races we've divided up on the earth are BS and they aren't real. There is one race, the human race, and we all need to work for that collective. And so the division a lot of the times is driven from that. It's driven from the fact that we are focused in America a lot of the times on the I, not the we, not the collective, not everyone else. And especially when it comes to social media and becoming famous and everything else like that, becoming famous is become this focal point in America. If you want to make it, you have to be famous.
What happened to the everyday plumber, electrician? Like, those are my heroes, and I'm not even joking right now. Like,
no, 100%.
Plumbers, electricians, gas men. Like, you run America and you don't even know it. Okay, I have a really good friend who works at at Semco, and in the wintertime, when a person's gas goes out and it's life or death, that's the dude that goes out and saves them.
That's awesome.
It's like, I think of that. I think of when you see a mass power outage and you got these DTE guys that are doing everything they possibly can to make the situation happen, to get a person power. Those are the heroes of society, and those are people that aren't showcased at all. Mike Rowe and Dirtiest Jobs. I think that's a greatest show ever. I think that showcases a portion of America that nobody ever thinks about.
Oh, 100%. And I think to add on top of that, another profession that's highlighted is going to be teachers. Like, think about the education in America. Also, the division is also created from the lack of education. Our educational system, in my opinion, and based on statistics in America, just keeps getting worse. We're not going to college to become engineers. We're not going to college.
Or it depends on where you are, sadly.
Oh,
honestly,
100%.
And this is sad to say it out loud, but and the internet may kill me for this, but I want to say Oregon just passed a law where you don't have to pass any type of math or science standard to graduate from high school.
Wow, that's unfortunate because our STEM programs are the biggest suffering that we have.
Like literally, and I read that, and I didn't understand, and maybe I'm wrong, but reading the article is what I didn't understand, is why would that ever be a thing? Like, why not raise the standard? Why not figure out how to pay teachers more? Hey, God forbid we pay for teachers' supplies. I mean, what?
The idea of pushing kids through, the whole idea of no kid left behind. The idea that we basically pass kids through all elementary up until high school without having to actually pass. I mean, the passing grade at some of these high schools even is, I believe it was, it was not even a 50%. It was like a 40% or something, just ridiculously low that I don't understand. Because when I was growing up, a 65 was how you had to get through high school. Like, and that was like maybe, because really in reality 70. You had to get that C- at least. And so I don't understand why we've lowered the standards, because that's what it feels like based on what you're saying, is why are we lowering the standards?
Well, I may catch flack for this, but this is like the idea of giving everybody a medal.
That's the no kid left behind thought.
Yeah, and it's not. Competition is good. I think competition is good. Some people may not agree with me, but I think competition, especially when you think of all of us in this together as a whole, I think that's good. I think people should strive to work harder and be better versions of themselves.
Innovate. That's where it comes from.
Yeah, innovate. And you can be famous. You can want to be famous. The path to get there is different for everybody. Everybody has a niche. But what you see on Instagram isn't real. What you see on the internet 90% of the time isn't real. What you see is a person who can probably barely even afford their lifestyle.
Yeah.
They scrape everything they can together to get that perfect scene moment.
That flex.
Yeah, and it's like, it's not real, it's not attainable, but what is
it's not sustainable at all.
You attain what you want to attain in life. It's what you're willing to sacrifice to get there. You can have it. Everybody could have it. If everybody had the self-sacrifice to do anything, like, weight loss goals are a perfect example here. How many meals a day do you eat? You know what I'm saying? Like that was my personal sacrifice to lose weight. It was as simple as that. Everybody says you shouldn't do it the way you did it. I did it, and it works great. It was a complete lifestyle change. I had to live with it.
It's a mental problem.
And I love it. But that's me. It's not a cure-all. It worked for me. Everybody has to find their own way, and finding your own way is tripping and falling on your face. That's finding your own way, because in 100,000 years of existence, before the internet, in Wikipedia, in Google, this is how people figured stuff out.
Yeah, you learn more from your failures than any of your winnings will ever teach you. Like, because if you don't innovate and if you don't figure out how to fix that problem, you're going to be stuck with that problem
forever,
right where you're at, and you're going to be stagnated. Why not innovate? Why not become a better version of yourself, like you alluded to?
Exactly, and that's part of when we have these, these thoughts of the collective, and we are your blood's red, right? Okay, great. Your blood's red, my blood's red. We're all human beings. Not to say that some people don't submit to the idea of being secluded in nice, neat groups. It's so easy for whatever entity or power runs this planet to control all of us if we submit to their idea of nice, neat little boxes. It makes controlling us so much easier, because now we are categorized and you're given a number. And I'm starting to sound more like a Jew in Nazi Germany and less like a human. It wasn't just the Jews. It was the gypsies. It was homosexuals. It was mentally incapacitated people. It was anybody they didn't like or deem fit for their perfect idea of the world. That idea existed. Okay, that idea existed less than 100 years ago. And people think that it could never happen. And it's like, not only could it never happen, it did happen.
Yeah.
And
they let it happen.
And they let it happen. The German people they watched it. There were normal German people that were like, whoa, why are we murdering all of these people? What the hell is going on here? This makes no sense to me, but it's either that or die. And you know what? Some of them people emigrated to the U.S. and tried to figure life out and fought for the right cause. Yeah. But we are entering a time in our own American, I think, beautiful experiment. We're trying here. We are the country that took an idea and ran with it. And we're young. We are very young.
Oh, very much so.
We're a 21-year-old at the wheel. Okay, we're
spinning out of control.
We're George Bush. We're George Bush in college right now. Okay. Debbie, I got what movie? Oh, it's Harold and Kumar Escape from Guantanamo Bay, where I got some Alabama Kush laced with blow. I think that's what America is right now. Okay, it's literally George W. Bush in college trying to figure his fucking life out. Like.
Yeah, well, trying to at the same time tax the shit out of cannabis and hurt everybody.
That's why we talked about George a little bit.
Yeah, like that is, I think, causing more of a divide in the industry than anything else, because the people who can make it right now are the people who have endless pockets, or they're doing
Look at the
really good
acquisition.
planning.
What was Gage? What we talked about in the last episode? Was it 54 or 44 million?
It was ridiculous. I honestly just don't remember exactly.
They have, what is it, 7 stores? 3 stores? I mean, it's not a big number. It's
they have a few stores.
But the millions. Millions.
Well, that's the thing. Like, if you look at the financials of these, they make money. It's not like they don't make money. It's just the amount of tax you have to pay at the same time. If you're not paying attention, you can get hurt really easily. And there's also a lot of things that, if you're not spending your money properly, and I say it in the way of spending your money properly for tax purposes, then you're going to be out a lot of money on your tax returns, and you're going to be owing on a lot of money. Because if you're paying your employees an exorbitant amount of fees or salaries and everything like that, right now, there's no incentive for a retail store to pay their bud tenders well. Because the bud tenders, their salaries, not tax deductible. They're not allowed any of that. Wow. So why, as a retail storefront, would I pay my bud tenders well? And then that creates a divide between the bud tender and the retail storefront. Because as a bud tender, I'm going to jump around until I can find the best rate. Because why should I get paid just as much as someone flipping burgers or whatever? Not that those jobs aren't valuable, because we found that out during COVID.
Yeah.
But something that is a completely different service. Because if you think about it from the medical side, the cannabis side, giving medical patients a great recommendation, a good recommendation for their ailments is so key. So the bud tender is that in between, that gatekeeper essentially to their wellness. And so if we don't treat our bud tenders well, what incentive do our bud tenders have to treat our customers well?
Yeah,
you nailed it. There's only one that I know of that's doing a really good job with their bud tenders, paying them really good wages, as well as taking the tips and then donating them back to the local community and doubling that at the same time. So their tips, they collect them, they double those, and then send it out to the local community. And that is Penny's company, NSH.
Oh,
so Northern Specialty Health up in
Houghton, Michigan. So you ever find yourself, as a shout out to Penny Moonbeam in Houghton, Michigan, NSH. They are a locally normal human. I say normal human because they're not some giant mega corp who sues local communities to get licenses. Like a local family-owned dispensary that is located up in northern Michigan. You ever find yourself way up in the Yoop? Definitely check them out.
Oh, definitely great people. Go check them out for sure. And if any reason, Penny, I messed up how you do your tips and everything like that, please just let us know and I'll correct that.
Tell us. So segmenting from our division segment to the Great Divide, we talk about the Great Divide, and I'm referring to the Great Divide that you're seeing in America right now. I'm seeing what we were talking about in the first part of this, the hate segment. The tennis ball from DJ Agricola, like our guy, like he's dead on. That analogy, I think, is it. And I play a lot of tennis, and my strategy is to hit the ball as far as I can and keep them in the backcourt until they come up short. And I'm not going to mess up. I'm going to wait till they mess up. That's how I play. I become king of the lob. If you ever play tennis against me, I'm just going to lob it. Okay. I'm going to make you hit a high ball every time. That's because I play against my dad, who's a hardcore net player, and my Uncle Jose and my sister, who are all great net players. And you got to hit it over them effectively. So I've learned how to lob it effectively over them. Oh, okay. And I think that same concept approach that conversation in our because it happened.
Well, those are all people who've never lived through war. They've never experienced war zones. So when people talk about, we'll go out in the streets and we'll just fight. Okay, cool. What happens when someone breaks in your house and busts up all your shit and then you got to pay for it?
What happens when someone comes and robs you of everything and makes the conscious decision to leave you alive? Because they could kill you. Mm-hmm. That's the saddest part about this world, that this government-free, we're going to govern ourselves world, that there are a lot of people in this country that think that's an okay idea. And it's like, I don't think you understand how bad it could get. Like, if there are people who are unchecked by the morality of society and they're free to do whatever they want, there is no amount of people that are going to stop them. It's going to happen.
Oh,
And,
100%.
and then we'll go back to the days of straight up good versus evil, where there wasn't enough people in the commonality that had enough morals, where there was a herd immunity of morals, where everybody acted well towards each other. If there isn't a herd immunity of morals in the community where everybody acts good towards each other, they don't act good, they act bad.
Yeah.
And go into areas of America where it's bad and look at the commonality of morals amongst the people in that area. And then ask yourself, why is it so horrible?
That makes sense.
To me, that's just a simple correlation. When people hate each other, the area that they live in is a war zone. When people don't hate each other, the area that they live in has a slight chance.
I feel like it also, part of it is too, like the good and bad is subjective, because the people who live in these various areas and stuff, sometimes the funding isn't there to help support that system to be better. Like look at the local areas that we have in Michigan.
Oh, I look at the city of Detroit.
There's certain cities that don't get the funding. They don't get the money for the infrastructure they deserve. I mean, look at Flint. Have they fixed the water pipes? I'm still waiting.
No. There's a $780 million lawsuit. $780 million lawsuit that I want to say just finished or is about to finish to award everybody who was affected by it, whether you filed in the lawsuit or not.
I mean, that's cool, but
still a problem.
Can we fix it? Like
Yeah.
that's
No. So
it's a
yeah,
PR stunt.
It won't be fixed.
It's a big PR stunt. Like,
move. Take the money and move.
Everybody, here's your money. Here's your money. Now forget about the problem.
Yeah. Well,
Like, we're not
no.
gonna fix it.
Listen. Not forget about the problem. What's going to happen is, and foresight, internet
That's
can
fair.
call me out on this in 20 years if I'm wrong. This is a payoff to get everybody to leave. So the property values go to nothing.
And they can swipe it up and
Then fix the problem.
Yeah.
And now I bought it for nothing,
Uh-huh.
and it's a major metropolitan city, and you can develop it and make billions
Well, if
forever.
I mean,
Look at what Dan Gilbert did in Detroit. And it's nothing negative, but he soaked up massive swaths of the city of Detroit, developed them, and is now reaping the benefits. If you, as a human being, want to go buy a piece of Detroit land bank property, you have to bring in a business plan that's real, and you have to prove it, and you have to convince them.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, they'll say no, unless you already have a piece of property that's adjoined to a Detroit land bank property. Then you might have a little bit more of a chance. Why? There's so much crap. There's so much open land that could be developed. Why wouldn't they open it?
Well, yeah, it seems like it's a pooling of real estate amongst certain companies, certain people, because look at what happened with Zillow. All the bots that snatched up all these houses at ridiculous rates and everything else. But now, at the same time, these rates aren't going down. And all these people are out of a house, and there's more renters than ever. And it's just getting worse, it seems like, more than anything else is really where I'm going with this.
Well, and like now
Like, I
you
feel
have
like
an
it's all,
exacerbation
like,
of the
this
housing
game,
market.
almost. Like they're trying to basically collect all that. They're trying to, basically it looks like they're trying to control the housing. So where all the housing that we have, like real estate housing, not like apartments or anything like that, but actual housing is going to be bought up by basically renters only. So the only thing that people in our generation and below can do is rent. And that's honestly something I feel like it's going down that
Do
path.
you own a home?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, so I bought a home as well 5 years ago. And in my world, it was the greatest decision I ever made in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I slaved to make that happen and sacrificed. And I literally, there were times where I thought, what am I doing? Years of searching, and I found it, and I seized the opportunity.
Oh, yeah.
That same exact thing can occur in society right now. It's harder. Houses are more expensive, but the same concept comes to apply. It will happen eventually. But we're in a really hard time right now because there's nothing to buy. There's nothing to buy because and whether it's artificial hyperinflation or real hyperinflation,
that's the thing.
we are experiencing immense inflation right now. Like we talked about,
unsustainable too.
we talked about this earlier. I find it hilarious because you look at a governmental response to the needs of the people. Do you want to know how much your government loves you? Okay, your government loves you so much that the Fight for 15 movement put them in a position where they had to make $15 an hour a pay decrease, which is exactly what we're seeing now. $15 an hour is not a living wage anymore. It's not. Especially with housing being what it is, you can rent for more now.
Yeah.
Everything goes up.
The prices are the prices have gotten out of control. That's the thing, that kind of gets me sometimes about the generations above us sometimes who don't really look at the situation. They're like, well, work harder. It's like, okay, cool.
But you keep raising the bar. It's a moving target.
Well, yeah.
What's that like?
How many raises is it going to take for me to afford a house? Like, I have to make a good wage to afford my home and to be able to not have to rent and all that stuff. And
you're a mouse on a wheel.
Yeah.
At that point, literally, I'm sitting here and I'm like, wow, I feel like you're describing a mouse on a wheel running towards an unattainable target to power a system. And like yourself as a CPA, doing the taxes for a business, so that business can file their taxes and pay money into the system. And to keep that system going, you contribute, I contribute, everybody contributes in a micro way to that ecosystem. And just like the burger flippers, just like the guys who operate the cranes at the ports, they're also my heroes.
Oh, yeah.
They own this country and they don't even know it.
That's the thing. The power of the people is so powerful, but we just fail to understand it. Sometimes I think we get it now to an extent because we've seen this. There's I don't know if it's being called like the mass resignation or whatever, but basically for the past 6 months, a ton of people in America have quit their jobs and moved to different jobs. And so what it is doing, which I really appreciate as a beneficiary of that, is it's driving the wages up. It's forcing employers to say, oh crap, I actually have to pay people livable wages. I have to pay people better to do the job. So I can't just basically go on wages that are unreasonable. I don't want to ever go down a super negative path and say slave wages, but
no,
it's just ridiculous.
So it's simple economics, okay? You're an accountant. You do your own personal accounting, okay? Shout out to a forward episode, Dabs in Accounting, where we're going to talk about personal accounting methods to, make your life a little easier. But you have a system in place to make sure that you have enough money to sustain. That's not a normal thing for a lot of people.
No, the average household doesn't have $500 saved for an emergency.
Yeah.
And if
you're saying the average household.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So if you do, then you are among the, I can't remember what higher percentage, but you are fortunate in America if you have $500 in savings for an emergency. And
that's like a minor emergency.
Statistic. That's a very minor emergency. I'm thinking about,
what's a hot water heater cost installed?
Well, think about all the flooding we've had in Michigan lately. Like, how many people are probably out
with no flood insurance?
Well, yeah, no flood insurance
we don't have
or anything like that.
Aren't we a state where flood insurance isn't a thing?
I don't think it is, because
you can get flood coverage, but you can't get flood insurance or something like that.
I don't think there.
I don't know where I'm at with this. I remember when I was getting my insurance, they mentioned it, and
Well, the company I'm going to go through to get my basement fixed because of all the rain and everything, they do lifetime warranties. Essentially, as long as you live in that home, whatever the work they do, they hold it up for the lifetime.
Okay.
As you live in the home. So I'm assuming based on that, then there probably isn't flood insurance, because why would they offer such a service if there's other ways to cover it? Unless they're just trying to incentivize.
Okay. Yeah.
It's been crazy.
Having a high moment right now because this is really, really good stuff. Shout out to Volcano Concentrates. They
always providing great concentrates. That cookie. What was it? Cookie batter today?
That's what's in the bags today is cookie batter.
Beautiful. Oh my God, definitely.
So talking about the cookie batter, I think the cookie batter can help cure this great divide. And when we talk about the overall Great Divide, the point I was getting at earlier when I mentioned the USSR, back to my high thought, I remember now what I was getting at. So the world that a lot of people want, I say a lot of people, there's a subsection of America that truly believes a revolution needs to occur where we wipe out the U.S. government and replace it with a people's government. Similar to the uprisings we saw in Russia and the uprisings that were seen in China. The idea of real communism in America. Both of those ideas in both countries, by the time the revolution got to a governmental form, the people that made it happen were murdered by their own people. And then those guys were murdered by their own people. And the dude that got ahead, Stalin. And when he got in power, every one of his political rivals were killed.
Yeah, you have to be basically willing to murder somebody.
And he ran the show. And now look at Russia with Putin. And I'm not downing him. I think the guy has consolidated power to a point where how could he ever not be the person running Russia?
Well, he's written the law that way. I think he changed the law to where he actually can just basically have the presidency for the rest of his life. I think he's now the permanent president or something along those lines.
Forever.
There's something to where he can't.
Any Russians,
there's no term limits anymore.
Any Russians that may watch the show, DM us so we can get some answers on this, because it's a thought. It's not a negative. Like, I'm not downing him. I'm not trying to say fuck the guy. Like, it's a very interesting thing. He runs a country for life, and they're not a small country.
No, they're not.
Like, they have resources. They supply Europe with their heat, with their gas. Like, they own Europe in the winter.
Well, yeah. And there's theories that they basically, that he gets rid of competition, or he gets rid of naysayers, or people who
it's a thing.
Talk against him and things like that. So, and on some level, when it comes to that kind of structure, it sounds like whether it be China, whether it be Russia, you have to be willing to kill your opposition or silence anyone who's opposed to you to maintain that power and maintain that structure and maintain that stability. So my question then would be, how happy are the citizens within that structure? Really?
Oh, so and I love having this conversation, because look at China.
No, that's why I'm asking the question, because I don't look at China.
I do. So they are my shining example of communism taken to the upteenth in the 21st century. Because in Russia, in the USSR, life was not amazing in their communist reign. It was great right up until they ran out of money. And then there was famine, and everything broke up, and the individual nations figured it out on their own.
Okay.
In China, in your inner city world, there are people stacked on top of each other. And all they're doing is taking the industrialized areas and going up and out and up and out. They took everybody from the countryside and they packed them in the cities. And the only reason it works is because Chinese culture teaches a person not to want. It's almost part of their religion. It's part of their cultural teachings. The pain comes from wanting. You know, Buddha teaches
that sounds like Buddhism.
Pain, exactly. It's pain comes from wanting, and they don't want. So because they don't want, they're okay with being stacked on top of each other. And that ideology is great for a culture of billions that live on top of each other. Our culture, on the other hand, will not be okay with that. You see people in cities like in Los Angeles or in New York, they are mass migrations. They're leaving in droves to rural areas because we were not, in my mind, we weren't designed to be free and to be open and to be able to exist and move freely.
Oh, for sure. I don't think we were meant to be stacked on top of each other. I think we're meant to be connected to each other, because I think we're all connected with a singular energy, consciousness, whatever that may be, the spirit. But I think at the same time, we are meant to work on that spirit and kind of help create a better collective spirit. And by doing that, you have to work on yourself, and you have to spend time with yourself. And so you can't spend time with yourself while you're with others. You just can't. Like, you have to be willing to sit with yourself and really just have that silence and sit with that silence, because that's some of the things that really is important.
Meditation is definitely real, for sure. Guided meditation.
Exactly what I'm referring to.
Highly recommend a guided meditation for everybody.
Oh yeah, guided meditations are great. There's a room held by a woman named Nydia who runs a company named the company we've referred to multiple times over, Got Terpenes. She runs a room every morning on Clubhouse from 7 to 8 a.m. and it's a morning mantras, and it's the greatest way to start my day, because I've found that if I start my day with mantras, I start my day with music, music and thoughts that are healing, my soul is better. I'm a better person that day. I show up differently. And that to me is really important, because how I show up in a situation really dictates how I'm going to behave in the situation. And I want to show up with a lot more calm, a lot more peace, because I found that I'm a happier person the more peace that I bring into my life, the more I'm allowed to just let this abundance flow. And I'm forever grateful for people like Nydia and yourself and others who just help me realize what that can be.
I hear you there, and I think to myself as we talk about everything, you know, this great divide in our country, you know, how do you even start, you know, curing that? How do you work towards a better future? How do you even start that? And I think it always comes back to having the ability to communicate, having the ability to conversate and articulate yourself. And then, which is even more important than the first one, is being able to listen.
I was just about to say that.
Literally, because you can say whatever the hell you want, but if you can't listen, you won't know how they respond because you didn't listen.
100%.
I mean, literally, speech is incredibly important, but being able to listen to what's being said back to you allows you to articulate a more thought out statement that, hey, they could say something that could teach you something. Like, this is something I've always believed in. Like, this is one of my prophet moments. Like, I see the world at X degree because I'm me. And you will never, ever be able to see the world the way I see it because you're you. You're not me. You're not me. You're you. I'm me, and you're you. Like, it's a really simple idea, but
it's simple yet complex.
But you can see how I see if you just listen, and I can see how you see if I just listen. And that's the only way that I'll ever understand what you're saying, is if I listen to what you're saying and then you listen to what I'm saying. That's the basis of communication. And I think there's been an immense breakdown of communication in society. Like, I used to say at one of the businesses I used to work at, wow, there's a hell of a breakdown in communication here. I wonder why we have all these problems. And I look at society today and I go, man, we got a hell of a breakdown in communication here. Like,
we really do.
We could solve this if we just learned how to talk to each other again. That's my take. And like, when we talk about the Great Divide and, episode 5, Dabs of Division, because I'm a solutions guy. I am. I do not. You're bitching and you're moaning if you're talking about a problem without solutions. 5 minutes of talking about a problem. After minute number 5, anything you say after that to me is bitching and moaning.
That's fair.
Unless it has something to do with a solution. Like, let's workshop this. Like, okay, you hate me. Great. Why do you hate me? Okay, that's horrible. I did do that. Like, great. I'm sorry. I won't do it again. And it's either one of two things. My words match my actions, or my words don't match my actions, and I'm a horrible person, and I'm a manipulator, and I deserve to be hated.
Okay.
But if you actually try to workshop a problem with somebody that hates you, and then you create actionable solution, and you do it, there should be no hate. But if you don't do it, and you go back and you don't work the solution, and it's not a win-win, then yeah, I can understand why that occurs, and that's a whole different conversation. But right now, in our world, in the country, our divide, I don't think we're anywhere near a scenario where we couldn't just sit down and have a conversation and find a middle, because there's always a middle. There's always a middle. There is oppression. Let's not say there's blanket oppression. Let's say there's micro oppression everywhere. And let's find the individual microsites of oppression and eradicate them, rather than saying it's a blanket problem, it's everywhere, and it's unfixable. It's not.
Oh, yeah.
It's completely fixable. It's here, and here. Great.
Oh, yeah.
One at a time. And we will solve them together, one at a time. Because that's the only way you will do this. I mean, see those hilarious memes where they talk about, the amount of steps you take to a goal. Take a bunch of little steps and it's a bunch of little rungs on a ladder, as opposed to trying to take these giant leaping steps. You won't even get past the first one.
That's fair.
Or like scaling a business.
Yeah.
You don't wake up one morning and have a multi-billion-dollar business or a multi-million-dollar business. I mean, it takes time. It takes process. It takes work.
The entrepreneurship journey is not this straightforward rocket to success like everyone thinks. They just see these success stories like Gary Vee and people like that without realizing they worked.
Gary made videos forever. Gary was making videos in the year 2000 before videos online meant something. That's what people don't get about Gary Vee. Like that guy's been sweating and humping for years.
They worked their.
He worked for this shit.
There's no doubt about that, and that's what people fail to realize a lot of the times. And in that process,
that guy's the Edison of video making online and video marketing production.
His process wasn't a straight line trajectory. It was up and down and backwards and up and down and forward and backwards and all over the fucking place, because that's how entrepreneurship works. It is not a straightforward line. You're going to have your really good days and you're going to have your really bad days. I know I've spent some bad days for sure. And that's one of those things that having a support group, having people you can talk to that are going through the same things, because no one else understands what an entrepreneur goes through besides another entrepreneur.
No, you nailed it. And that up and down, back and forth, that path, that what you're talking about right now, that right there is the path to fix this great divide that we're talking about. It's going to be crappy, or it's going to go forward, it's going to go back. But as long as we communicate and stick together, we got this. Communication, conversation, articulation, but above all, above everything, learn how to listen again. I think that's our ending for today, folks. The Dabs and Show, episode 5, Dabs and Division. Thank you very much for joining us. I am the Prophet.
I am the Terp CPA.